And here is what we need to focus in on, ad-diraya. Like, it's easy to narrate things, but how much do you understand, right? And just from relating the hadith, the scholars had different ways to understand it. So in this statement, it was related by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. And I should say in his Sahih. This narration. So our way of confirming the report of someone about the Salaf after the Salaf is by way of al-isnad, sanad. It's very important. And when you start to study sanad, it will help you connect to time. Why? Because a sanad, as we mentioned, the sanad of Imam Ahmad back to the Prophet with that hadith, the golden chain, right? It is Ahmad from Shafi'i, from Malik, from Nafi, from Abdullah ibn Umar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, these are individuals who lived in specific times. From that, we get to know the scholars of time, right? So when those asanid are extended, right, what you're going to be able to indicate is to know the people of each generation who were the scholars of the generation, right? Because each generation is represented by its scholars, right? How many people lived in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Many. At the death of the Prophet, some scholars, they estimate there were 124,000 Sahaba around. That's a lot, right? How many of those companions do we know? Very few, right? Like, we don't know all those companions. But they had, why? Because a companion is what? Someone who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam even for a moment while alive and believed in him and died as a Muslim. That's a companion. So if someone came to Al-Madinah and he just saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he believed in him and then left, he's a Sahabi. Some of them, and in many hadith, they say, Ja'a rajul ila nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man came to the Prophet. Well, that man's a companion, right? We may not know who he is, right? So you have many. But when we talk about isnad, it's important to identify individuals, right? So you have great scholars that existed, and they're going to be the representatives of the opinions or the understanding of those generations. Y'all follow me? And if you talk about the Sahaba, they count, and you should write this in your notes. Among the Sahaba, those who gave legal opinions, religious verdicts, were only around 7, and the highest estimates they say like 10. That the people relied on them to give judgments. Among them, Abu Bakr, Ali, Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Aisha, Zayd ibn Thabit, maybe Ubay bin Ka'ab you can count. Very few, handful of them, that actually gave religious judgments. Very few. Out of how many? Think about that. So that's an indication when someone says, why we only follow 4 madhahib? Well, this was happening in the Sahaba. Everyone didn't, and because once the Prophet died, these were the people whom they went to for their opinions when they wanted to learn religious rules. So now, if we talk about after those 300 years, so we're not quoting directly from the Salaf, then that means we're narrating up to the Salaf, and we have to confirm those narrations by isnad, by chain of narration. And Abdullah ibn Mubarak, and remember who's narrating this. We said Imam Muslim is relating this in the introduction of his Sahih. In his Muqaddimah of his book, Sahih Muslim, you're going to find this statement. He has a section there talking about the importance of isnad. Like why because it's how we learn our religion is through the chain of narration. Without it, when he said, Al-Islam min ad-Din, that Islam is a part of the Islam is a part of the religion. Without it, then anyone can say whatever they want. So therefore, we have to confirm narration, that's the riwayah of it, And then we need to understand it, which is the diraya of it. The diraya of the riwayah. The understanding of the narration. Now, whenever we want to ascribe a position, whether, because we talked about this in terms of our subject, right? Whenever we want to talk about a position of the Salaf, we're going to talk about three main aspects of their practice, their religious practice. So we want to confirm a practice that this is the practice of the Salaf, right? We're going to divide them into three, basically, three main, either in belief, right? Practice, or spirituality, right? So this is the three aspects, because these are the primary branches of Islamic knowledge. Something we believe, something we practice, or spiritual state of the heart that we have. That's our religion, which is based on the hadith of Jibreel, right? The famous hadith of Jibreel, where Jibreel came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him about al-Islam, which is actually the practice, al-Iman, which is actually the belief, and al-Ihsan, which is actually the spirituality, right? That is our religion. So if we want to talk about as-Salaf, we need to know all of that about them. So this thing can actually be broken down, if we want to go in detail, this topic, the beliefs of as-Salaf, that could be a whole seminar in and of itself. The practice of the Salaf, how they actually practice, what was their methodology in practice, and spirituality, what was their methodology in spirituality. And here, you should keep in mind that if we want to take a Salaf, that they actually had all of these branches. So they had belief, which would be aqidah, right? So when we talk about the belief of the Salaf, what was their aqidah? An important matter. They had practice, which was al-fiqh. What was their way of practicing fiqh and deriving Islamic rulings, right? Then they had spirituality, which is tasawwuf, right? And we have a firm statement from Imam Shafi'i and others, but Imam Shafi'i mentioned what he learned from the Sufis, which tell us that this spirituality was something that was practiced in the time of the Salaf, right? So we should identify that because it's very important. And we even have statements from that from Imam Malik and others. But when we talk about the thing, now you're going to have two aspects that I want to talk about before I go into a little more detail of these aspects, right? Because understanding their methodology.